All right, guys, how do we feel about Teofimo Lopez and his chances against a guy like Tank Davis? I think Teo stylistically is one of those fighters that he's pretty, jacked. He's bigger than Tank Davis, so I think the size would definitely play a role. If you look at it stylistically, guys that are either Tank's height or a little bit bigger, those are the guys that Tank seems to have an easier time with, as opposed to guys like Rolly Romero, who's 5'8". Teofimo Lopez is also about 5'8", maybe a little bit shorter, but still a very big 5'8", a big 140-pounder. So I'm curious to see how Tank would deal with a guy like that, because Teo is regarded as one of the biggest punchers at 140. He definitely has a level of power. Is it as strong as a guy like Ryan Garcia? When it comes to the left hook, maybe not, but all around, he's a very well-rounded fighter. I would argue that Teofimo Lopez is a better boxer than Ryan, but Ryan may just be very gifted with that left hook. If Teo gets hit with it, then he'd probably go to sleep. But getting a little bit off topic, I like that fight. I like Ryan Garcia and Teofimo Lopez, don't get me wrong, but specifically the matchup with Tank and Teo, I want to get into that a little bit, because I think it's a very good matchup. I think it's a fight that a lot of us would tune into, most of us would tune into, if not all, but really good fight. Why? Because both of these guys do their best work when they're facing very offensive fighters. You have a guy like Teofimo Lopez, who is a counterpuncher by nature, looks best when a guy is coming to him. And you have a guy like Tank. When is he getting his most brutal knockouts? When guys come to him, when guys are coming forward. And I think it would be an interesting stylistic matchup if these two were to fight each other. Teo does have pop, like I said before, so I'm curious to see, is he one of those fighters, one of the few that can gain the respect of a guy like Gervonta Tank Davis, where he can keep Tank at bay, keep him where he wants him, pop shot him when he wants to, and get off to the side and do that kind of stuff, style on a guy like Tank Davis, because I think that Teo is talented. He likes to have fun in there. He's loose in there. He's been boxing for a long time, just as Tank showed in his last fight. He gets to, become comfortable, do what he wants to, become a little bit more flowy, if that makes sense, a little bit more loose because of the experience. A guy like Frank Martin, I think he was very effective, but at the same time, a little bit too tense. He didn't trust in his talent, the ability to get shots off in combinations, throw them with, conviction, really, land big shots on Tank. He didn't do that. He kind of gave a lot of respect to Tank, and understandably so. I'm not getting in the ring with Tank. It's easy for me to say, but I think guys at this level, they have to be able to throw shots at Tank, do it comfortably and confidently. Otherwise, how are you going to gain any respect? We saw what Tank did. Contrary to all his past fights, he was coming at guys. For the first time, we're seeing him, in his most recent fights, we didn't see any of that. We saw Tank, okay, first 3-4 rounds, I'll give them to you, download the information, let me feel your power, let's see what you got, let's see your, any of your patterns, any tendencies you may have, and then, we'll see where the middle of the fight goes into the second half of that fight. Let's see if you can last with me. A lot of guys haven't. The only guy that's been able to do it is Isaac Cruz. And Isaac Cruz, his build, having basically no neck, it's easy for him to tuck that chin and keep that high guard. So stylistically, that was a tough fight for him. But a guy like Teofimo Lopez, would he be able to kind of get that respect from a guy like Tank Davis? Does he have the power to keep Tank honest? And I think there are a few guys that do. I think him and Ryan Garcia, with the right game plan, can give Tank problems, because if you're just his size or a little bit bigger, it's not that hard for him. But if you're a guy like Ryan Garcia is close to 5'10", you have a guy like Teofimo Lopez who's, yeah, he's 5'8", but it's still bigger than Tank, and physique wise, he'd be the bigger guy. Tank would have to be a little bit more elusive, a little bit more careful, as opposed to, being so confident. We saw him in the Hector Luis Garcia fight. We saw him against Frank Martin, very loose, very confident, throwing those shots with conviction, to land those shots with precision, and he landed those shots at will. So he does that against, the best fighters that are around his height, around his build. But once he gets to those guys that are bigger, Ryan Garcia, let's see, without a rehydration clause, if Ryan's visibly bigger than Tank in that ring, because when they did fight, as good of a performance as that was from Tank, a lot of it was because of Ryan Garcia having to give up that weight. Psychologically, I'm sure it affected him as well. A lot of you guys are going to say, he signed the contract, but at the same time, Ryan Garcia wasn't, just doing that for for that pay. You know, he could have made a lot of money fighting somebody else, but he fought Tank to make a big fight happen for the sport. So that's something that, you know, people overlook. They just say, you know, he signed the contract, didn't he? No, he didn't just sign the contract. He did something for the sport that should be appreciated. It shouldn't just be you lost this and that. You know, we also have to give him credit, because every real boxing fan knows the effect that a rehydration clause and a catch weight, you know, put on a fighter, not only physically but psychologically too. It's a lot of fighting is in your brain, and I'm sure as confident as Ryan Garcia was in that fight, you can't confidently get into that fight in comparison to if you were, you know, healthy and fully hydrated. You know, that's what I'm alluding to. I'm not trying to discredit Tank's win. I'm just saying there's a little bit of a, not an excuse, but, you know, a little bit of a question next to that win, because we know that that wasn't Ryan Garcia at his healthiest. That wasn't him at his strongest. Not to say that Tank won't beat him if they fight again. I'd probably favor Tank a little bit, but, you know, that size will play a factor, and that's why I think that a guy like Teofimo Lopez could have a lot of success, because of that same issue. The size is what I think is going to be a big factor in that fight against a guy like Tank. Not only that, but he has power as well. You can't just have size, you can't just have power. If you have a culmination or combination of both of them, then that's the kind of style that gives Tank some problems. So I think Teo has that. It's all about execution. Do we get the best version of Teofimo Lopez on fight night? A lot of questions that can only be answered in the ring, but I'm all for that fight. You know, if Tank wants to go to 140, I think Teofimo Lopez or Ryan Garcia is clearly two of the biggest tests, the two biggest tests for Tank at 140. If he stays at 35, obviously it's going to end up being Vasily Lomachenko and Shakur Stevenson, and I like those fights a lot. I've been, you know, hyping those fights up in my past few videos, but as well, I still really like that Teofimo Lopez fight. I think that they would try to implement a rehydration clause or a catch weight for Teo as well. Something along those lines. I don't know how easy it is for Teo to make 140, but I know that, you know, he said he'd be willing to fight Ryan at a catch weight. That tells me, you know, like, Teo's pretty big, and I knew that before, but it just reiterated it, you know, that Teo may outgrow 140 in the near future. So him and Tank is a great fight. It's just, you know, the same issue with Ryan Garcia. I think that they'd have to figure out a weight by the time that, you know, that fight would be in negotiations. But I still think that Tank has a lot of things to take care of when it comes to 135 still. I still think that he has to win a legitimate world title, and when I say it, you know, the real belt. I'm not talking about a regular I'm not saying that. I think he has to win a real belt and beat a champion and beat a guy like Vasily Lomachenko, beat a guy like Shakur Stevenson to really solidify that. You know, these are great fights, you know, no matter what. But I think that Tank, for him to, he can get away with saying stuff like belts don't matter to him, and he's still the face of boxing no matter what. And that stuff may have some truth to it, but at the same time, as a boxing fan, I want to see him collect those belts, because to say you're champion and to beat a champion are two different things, and I think Tank still has to do the latter. But you know, I still favor him in these fights. It's just I still have to see him do it. Like all of us boxing fans, we all believe in Tank. We all think he can win that fight against Shakur, win that fight against Lomachenko, but we can't just say he would do it. Tank has to get in the ring, sign the contract, and do it himself. And I'm excited because those are mega fights, and I hope that Lomachenko doesn't retire just from me being selfish. I want to see him and Tank go at it, because honestly, I see problems that Lomachenko, you know, poses to Tank. You know, the angles, the willingness to do whatever it takes to win the fight. That's the kind of stuff that, you know, Tank could give Tank problems that makes it interesting. I expect Tank to beat Lomachenko, but Loma could force Tank to deal with adversity. He cuts him up. Maybe it's a different fight. You know, there's a clash of heads. You don't know what's going to happen. You know, we've never seen Tank really battered. We've never seen him roughed up. We've never seen him really cut. So for Lomachenko, he knows every, I don't want to say he knows every dirty trick in the book, but he knows what he's doing. You know, having so much experience, you know, having fought a variety of different styles in the sport, being a solidified Hall of Famer already, I think that Loma has everything it takes to beat a guy like Tank. It's more so the conditioning. It's more so the timing. Is his reaction time the same? Is he the same fighter 5-6 years ago? Probably not, but what he has left, is that going to be able to propel him to to beat a guy like Tank, edge a decision win out, because he's definitely, in my opinion, not stopping Tank, but it's a great fight. But let me know in the comments what you guys think about Vasily Lomachenko fighting Tank, and more so, you know, the focus of this video was to talk about Teofimo Lopez and Gervonta Tank Davis. I think it's a great fight. I think when the timing is right, I don't think we see it this year, obviously, but I think close to 2025 we could get that fight. If in 2025 I'd be happy with that fight with Gervonta Tank Davis and Teofimo Lopez. I think it's a great fight, a big test for a guy like Tank, and a big fight and test for a guy like Teo. It'd be a great matchup, a great lead up. The promotion would be crazy for that fight. These guys have sparred each other as well. They're familiar with each other, but the pros are different. 8-ounce gloves, no headgear, all the lights. Having to factor in things like issues with that outside of the boxing, issues outside of the boxing ring, having to deal with all of that, and then at the same time having a successful training camp with no injuries. Who knows what could happen. So it'd be a great matchup, but we'd have to see it play out in the ring. I'd like to favor Tank, but that's a really close fight for me, Teo and Tank, because I do think that Teo has a significant level of power that could make things complicated for Tank and potentially give Tank a hard time. So let me know in the comments what you guys think. Thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, it's been your boy Matt with Navs Fight Media, and I'll catch you guys on the next video. Peace. That's going to do it for another Navs Fight Media video, guys. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been your boy Matt Nabong with another video. Hope you guys enjoyed it all. Thank you guys for the constant support. Salute to y'all always. It's been your boy.